we're not fighting the Chinese people, we're fighting the Chinese Communist Party. And they mean to take us out. It's invisible, but it's happening everywhere. And it's very scary. And the goal is to kind of push us out of the picture and install their system. And their system is a state-driven economic model and centralized control and authoritarianism. Our model is free market capitalism. These two systems are irreconcilable. China is not like anything we've faced before. It is an adversary. It's not a competitor, right? Great power competition. We are in an invisible war, and it's been going on for a long time. You say, what does that mean, an invisible war? Well, it takes many forms, and the vectors of attack are seemingly nowhere but everywhere at the same time. Intellectual property theft, okay? We lose more every year in intellectual property theft than in almost anything. Hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars have been stolen by China to advance their manufacturing, to advance their dual-use technologies, to advance their military, and so forth. This is happening at universities. This is happening at companies. I mean, it was like 2 months ago that a Chinese citizen working at Google left the company with a thumb drive and he was on his way to Beijing. I mean, this is happening every day. You have Chinese scientists at Livermore Labs or wherever stealing stuff. So there's that element, which I think a lot of people understand. What people may not understand is China's ties to organized crime and to money laundering operations. The Chinese at this point have as much, if not more, power than the cartels because they are the money bags behind everything. We lose, 100,000 people to fentanyl every year? Mm-hmm. In World War II, we lost, 400,000 people? We're losing a quarter of the people we lost in World War II every year. And by the way, all the APIs, all the precursors to fentanyl come from one place. They come from China. And it's hard for me to understand if the Chinese Communist Party is in control of pretty much everything, and they are, it's hard for me to fathom that they wouldn't be willingly trying to poison the United States. Mm-hmm. It's deliberate. Mm-hmm. So there's that. We have, across the world, the United States being thwarted by the likes of Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, certainly Russia, in this hemisphere, Venezuela, and a lot of it goes back to China. There is a new axis that's developing, and China is the economic might behind all of this. And so we're seeing it play out in lots of different places, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's coordinated.
It seems to me like they have us at pretty much every angle, which scares the hell out of me. I mean...
Remember Daryl Morley?
I don't.
He was the GM for a big basketball team. I want to say the Mavs. It'll come back to me. I'm getting a brain fog moment. But he tweeted something in support of the Hong Kong pro-democracy protesters. And he got pilloried by everybody in the NBA. And so why? Because the NBA makes a ton of money broadcasting in China, and the Chinese picked up the phone and said, this guy's got to go. There are only something like 40 American movies that are screened in China every year, and so Hollywood falls over itself to appease China to make sure that the movie can hit the Chinese censorship apparatus. So everything is compromised. Universities make money when people pay full tuition. And you've got 300,000 Chinese kids in America largely paying full tuition. So the universities are like, I'm not going to talk about China. Think tanks. A think tank will be encouraged by China to write a puff piece or a neutral piece on a given topic, like what China's doing in Africa, okay? And China will say, hey, here's a few $1 million. There's more to come. We want to see what the outcome is. a think tank will write a piece, like a big Washington think tank, which will get picked up by the New York Times, will get picked up by the Washington Post. And the next thing you know, China is a benevolent actor in Africa. Wait, how did that happen? If you were to dissect it, how did it happen? And so, again, the vectors, it's invisible, but it's happening everywhere. And it's very scary. And they have a goal, and the goal is to kind of push us out of the picture and install their system. And their system is a state-driven economic model and centralized control and authoritarianism. Our model is freedom of the individual, autonomy, and free market capitalism. These two systems are irreconcilable, okay? So this is what we're fighting. So it's more than just a country. It's what we're fighting is an ideology. We're not fighting the Chinese people. We're fighting the Chinese Communist Party. And they mean to take us out. And they have said, we will take Taiwan. We will be the powerhouse in robotics and AI and synthetic biology and semiconductors. This is what we're going to do. And we'll leave a few crumbs to everybody else as long as they toe the line. And America is just kind of in our way at this point. And I don't understand how our policymakers don't see this with clarity, because it's so obvious.
I don't either. How much influence do they have over our policymakers?
I don't know. We had a member of Congress that was, sleeping with a Chinese spy.
I mean, it seems to me that they are also very, they'll build our policymakers' businesses over there, correct? And then they get hooked on the money, and then they can yank that business at any moment because it's a communist country. For example, it's my understanding that Mitch McConnell has a shipping business, a Chinese shipping business.
Well, his wife, Elaine Chao, and the Chao family has long-standing ties to the CCP back to the Jiang Zemin days. And so, yeah, of course. Dianne Feinstein, RIP, had a driver for 20 years who was a Chinese spy. But that's the overt stuff. The more nefarious stuff is it's very plausible and very likely that Chinese companies are hiring lobbyists in the United States to lobby on behalf of whatever, TikTok or whatnot. Chinese companies may invest in American businesses that in turn have money to donate to politicians. And then, of course, you have an entire, let's take the automotive sector. If Ford or Volkswagen or major automobile companies were to leave China, it would result in a massive problem to their bottom line and to their share price. And the last thing they want to do is upset their shareholders. And so they don't want anything to change. And then, of course, you've got Wall Street, who is singularly focused on one thing, and that is maximizing profit. And they're doubling down on China, and they have been for years. That's starting to reel itself back because they're recognizing that they're not making money anymore. That's really the reason why they're dialing it back. And they see geopolitical conflict. But if China were doing well economically, they'd feed at the trough of, Chinese stocks day in and day out. And these are American fund managers. They're like, I don't care. I'm here to make money. And don't get me wrong, I get it. If you're a fund manager, you have a fiduciary responsibility. You have a moral responsibility to make sure that your pensioners, grandma gets her pension check. And you will invest wherever there's money to be made. Okay? I get it. You have to balance that, however, with patriotism. And sometimes you may be investing in a company in China that's building parts for the next weapon that's going to kill our soldiers. And so you have to balance patriotism with making money.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.